I found that pretty much everything important to know about life I've learned from my barely verbal autistic son, Philip. For instance, when we're at the doctor's office, he is super mellow about it most of the time, but as soon as they go to stick him with a needle or anything like that, unless he's warned ahead of time, he's always like, ah, we were having a perfectly good time here, and then you stuck me with this thing. And I mean, he doesn't say that, of course, because he's barely verbal, but that's what I imagine he's thinking. Over time, though, I was able to get him to understand what was going on by, I would point to the needle, and I would point to his arm, and I would give it a little pinch. I'd be like, okay, it's gonna hurt, and I would do that a couple times. And then when they would do the needle, he would be good with it. He would be okay with it. To the extent that one time we had to get his knee drained, and another time we had to draw blood. So, over time he's gotten pretty good with that. But back at the beginning, he was not. And way back then, one time we were at the dentist. And the dentist is a whole nother level, right? Because it's not only occasionally they stick you with something sharp, right? But they lay you back in this funny position. You have to keep your mouth open. You have to keep still, and then they put power tools in there and start doing stuff. And Philip wasn't having any of that. In fact, it was tough for them to get Philip to keep his mouth open and not bite him. So it turned out that he did have 4 cavities, and they weren't actual cavities yet. I guess they were genetic, pits that definitely would gather food over time and become cavities if not taken care of. So we had to take him to the hospital and do outpatient surgery essentially to get them taken care of. So we get there. It's about 7:15 in the morning. We're supposed to be first on the docket. The doctor comes out and she says, oh, I'm sorry, there's been an issue. It's going to be a little while longer. So 8 o'clock rolls around, the waiting room fills up with people, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and all this time, Philip's pretty good. Of course, Philip draws a lot of attention because he does make random utterances, which are almost always from different movies, usually Disney movies. So, out of the blue, he'll just be like, Genie, I set you free, or something like that. After about the 3rd hour, Philip started to get pretty antsy and unhappy. So, we did things like took him for little walks around. We tried to find new things for him to play with. But by the time noon rolled around, the waiting room was emptied again. So we were the only people there, and Philip was really starting to melt down. He was really like, get me out of here. And so I ended up going to the nurse and saying, look, I'm sorry, but we have to leave. Like this, he just can't take it anymore. And frankly, I was having a hard time taking it too. And she actually, surprisingly, barked at me a little bit and said, look, we've been going through all this to make sure that this can happen, and you all can't leave. But I'll see what I can do. So she did bring us back pretty quickly, and it was the way it was set out was there was a row of beds, along the wall, and each one had a curtain around it. So it was private, but there was just a curtain between you and the next bed a couple of feet away. So we're there for a couple minutes, and another nurse walks in, and she says, okay, I need to put it in his IV. At this point, I'm like, good luck. And so we tried a little bit, but it was clear that, it wasn't going to happen. It just wasn't going to happen. And she said, well, look, there's something else we can do. I'll be back in a minute. So she came back and she said, does Philip like bubblegum? I said, well, I guess so. I'm not sure he's ever chewed it. But she said, okay, what I have here is this syringe full of Valium, and it was like this pink gooey stuff, so it was almost like liquid bubble gum. So she said, okay, what I'm going to do is, we'll give him this, and that Valium should calm him down enough that then we can put in the IV. she said, do you think that he'll be okay with this? And I said, yeah, I think he'll be okay with this. So about the same time, the head nurse popped her head in, and she said, like, why didn't you tell us that he had special needs? We've had to go through all this other stuff. I'm like, look, I'm sorry. I thought this was all known. Really. And she moved on, but I was feeling a little beaten up here. So anyway, Philip, or the nurse, squirts the Valium into Philip's mouth, and Philip goes and just squirts this pink goo Valium everywhere. And my first thought is, oh my gosh, now I'm going to get yelled at again. So I wasn't mad at Philip at all. That's not even close to the worst thing he did probably that day. But that's just who he is. And so I was worried, though, that here I'm going to get yelled at again. So I said, oh no, I can't believe this happened. And okay, well, I actually was more saying curse words and things like that. So the head nurse rips open the curtain and she says, what is going on here? I'm like, oh, great. I said, I'm sorry, he spit this up all over everywhere. I didn't think he would. And she says, we deal with this stuff all the time. I don't care about that, but we're in a children's ward. There are kids everywhere. We can't have you yelling and cursing. And so immediately I'm like, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. So I was scared of being yelled at and trying to forestall that, and ended up causing a real situation that I deserved to be yelled at about. The good news, though, is that even though Philip spit this out, he did get enough of the Valium that he was pretty calm pretty quick, and we were able to get the IV in. I say we, as though obviously it was the nurse. Was able to get the IV in and get the procedure done. The other interesting thing that happened with this procedure is afterwards, Philip is barely verbal, but as he was waking up, I said, oh, Philip, are you okay? He looks at me and he flops his hand over and he goes, Daddy, hand, because he wanted me to hold his hand. And I didn't even know he knew the word hand. But that all turned out okay. As we were leaving, the head nurse pulled me aside. She said, look, I'm really sorry about how you were treated today and how she treated us. She said, I can't really go into it, but there was a lot of nasty stuff going on with the doctor, and we shouldn't have taken it out on you, and especially on Philip at all. So we're really sorry. And I appreciated that, but it also made me realize right then that all of this stuff that I thought was about me, all I was worried about this entire time was me. And in the waiting room, I was more worried about how will people view me because of Philip and how he's reacting. So I was worried about how are they going to view me because Philip spit up the Valium. But ultimately, the issue, had nothing to do with me, other than my reaction. So I learned an important lesson that day that very little is actually about me. So thank you.